Hey everyone, I wanted to do a short video about an article in Self that I was quoted in. Dr. Jessie Gold interviewed me and some other mental health advocates and doctors, and the article is about the word crazy. Is it good or bad? And the name of the article is No, You Shouldn't Call Someone Crazy, but Do We Have to Ban the Word Entirely? Okay, I just wanted to include a brief trigger warning. I speak extemporaneously, so I didn't know I was going to talk about this, but I talk about grief, loss, trauma, and suicide at some point in the video. So if those are subjects you want to avoid, this is a content warning. Thanks. So long story short, Jessie interviewed different people about how we feel about the word, and basically, what I feel is like, I don't ever believe in banning a word in its entirety. However, I also believe we can be sensitive to how others feel. So for example, I don't think it's appropriate for a psychiatrist to use the word crazy to describe someone. I also think that I've seen it where there are instances where people will not get help for serious, debilitating mental illness. And one of the factors is they do care about what other people think of them. And sometimes not getting help means that they just are miserable all the time. And in other cases, it can have fatal consequences. I had that situation with a friend who was struggling with deep depression, and she told me that she cared about what other people thought, and that was a big factor for her. So it was about 9 months had passed between the time I asked her to seek professional help and when she did. Trigger warning, you can stop watching right now. If anything regarding suicide or trauma, please stop watching. But she didn't survive her bipolar disorder. So what I say is, when we joke about things, be cognizant of how your words affect other people, even though I don't believe in banning the word. I also think people overuse it. When people disagree with someone, a political figure, they'll say, so-and-so is crazy. Or if somebody's racist, they'll say, oh, so-and-so is crazy. No, if you mean somebody's racist, say racist. If you have a lazy boss, say your boss is lazy. Don't call them crazy. If your boss is incompetent, well, they're incompetent. They're not crazy. And people will use it to diminish someone, like an ex, even though they're not talking about mental illness. So I think it's important that we are cognizant of what how our words affect other people, and are we contributing to a culture where people are less likely to seek help even though they're in deep trouble. And I also don't believe in canceling people. So I think all of us, if we're being honest, at some point in our lives used a word we regret. We've said something we regret. There's words I used 15, 20 years ago that now we recognize that they're not nice words to say. So I think there are certain cases, and there are different perspectives on the word crazy. Different people feel different things, and I believe that's why Jessie wrote this article. I think it's okay to use it. I think you should always consider the context, right? So if I'm talking about one of my favorite athletes, Simone Biles, and she does superhuman things, and I say Simone Biles exhibited crazy speed on the balance beam the other day. Well, obviously I'm not referring to mental illness. Obviously I'm not insulting anyone. I'm actually complimenting her. So it's tricky. I personally don't believe in canceling a word in its entirety. I think sometimes we try to erase history and forget, 20 years ago, like I said, certain words were acceptable, and we've learned it's not acceptable to refer to people. Certain marginalized groups are hurt by this word or that word, and I just wasn't cognizant of it before. So mental health stigma is kind of like, it's not the only type of discrimination in the world. And the other thing I wanted to announce is that the episode I was on of the Dana Michelle show, it's a talk show, is up. And the episode, she had a panel of 3 people and she interviewed us about depression and anxiety. So I was actually not nervous when we filmed the show, even though I hadn't been on TV in a couple years. And then it came out last week and I saw the commercial and then I got nervous. So I'm going to post a link to the Self magazine article where I was interviewed, and I'm going to post a link so you can watch that episode on the Dana Michelle show, even though I actually haven't watched it yet. I don't know why, I'm just nervous. I saw the commercial and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have worn that dress. I don't know if I should have worn that dress. I tend to second guess these things. So even though it's like a trivial thing, I'm like, oh no, what if I shouldn't have worn that? Oh, I don't know. So yeah, it's an episode about depression and anxiety, and people share different experiences. And I'm sorry I didn't put the trigger warning up earlier in the video. Please forgive me. Okay, bye.